This is Johnny. Johnny was the star of a series of 36 games created between 2002 and 2013. The Johnny games all had one thing in common. They were all really bad. So why were there 36 of them? And why did anyone play them? There's even a handful of Johnny fan games, so how did Johnny end up being this popular? Well, we're about to enter the world of Cubas and find out more. The Johnny games are arguably what game developer Kimberly Kubus is most famous for. Awful they may be, but awful in such a weird, surreal way that Kim ended up gaining quite a following over the years. He didn't just make Johnny though. Cubas created a vast quantity of games, all of which were incredibly strange, and you never knew what you were going to get. How about insane shampoo madness? Maybe some acupuncture Santa? Ikaskikahu flak flak. One windshield in the fields of transparent jizz from the Prince in balloon number 3. Or maybe, drink tea or die. This is all the work of a man who made bad games and did not seem to care one bit that people were negative about them. When asked, "Why does your game suck so much?" Cubas simply replied, "Because your tastes don't like it." So who the hell was Kimberly Kubus? Kimberly Kubus is a pseudonym for Kim Åkerström of Norway. He had a few other pseudonyms: Bedmonster, Boogeyman, Secret Vacuum Cleaner and Sparlaticus, but he's now most well known as Kimberly Kubus. Fans of Kim's work have worked to immortalise him forever over on cubasforever.com, and here we can find some great insights into this man's mind. In the year of 2001, Kim's sister received some clothes as a gift. However, she didn't want them since they were from a clothing store called Cubas. Cubas was considered a not very cool store, and to this her father responds, "Why don't you want these? Are you afraid of the Cubas man?" This is where the world of Cubas began. The Cubas man was envisioned as a man who would corrupt the mind of teenagers everywhere. He also adopted a K in place of a C, but this is simply because Kim didn't know how to spell Cubas properly. The Cubas man became the main inspiration for Kim's work as an artist, finding its way into his games, his drawings, his music and more. What is Cubas? It is myself. It is my name. It is my creations. It is my world. It is the people living in my world. Let's talk about Johnny, since these are the most famous works. I've played every one of these, but completed exactly none of them. Johnny 10, I couldn't even beat the first screen, because I couldn't even make the very first jump. But anyway, let's start off with Johnny 1, the original, where it all started. And let's also take a moment to look at this retina-searing webpage. Wow, that's really something. The original Johnny is from 2003, according to the website. However, the executable was actually created in 2002. And well, what can we say? It's incredibly buggy and kind of terrible. Johnny moves slower on the ground than in the air. If you press left or right while in the air, all vertical momentum is halted, so you can glide through the sky like a butterfly. All the collisions are precise, making the whole experience far more janky than it ever needs to be. Johnny is wearing a t-shirt that says PG Gaming. PG Games is short for the Paradise of Great Games. The Paradise of Great Games was originally supposed to be a website to host abandonware software, but since this was never created, it instead became the name of Cubas's game development company. The screen doesn't scroll until you're nearly at the edge, meaning you can't see where you're going. The projectiles fire every single frame and completely erratically, they're really hard to control. All the while you're playing, this electronic version of popcorn plays in the background. There's no other sounds, which give the game a really eerie atmosphere. There's also a really strange mix of art styles, none of which seem to fit together. But really, it's kind of compelling. It's so simple, you just move left and right, shooting infinite bullets, trying not to die. What kind of person makes this? Who would keep making game after game, when hardly anyone was really there to enjoy the games? Nobody ever really finished them or saw how they ended. Some of them couldn't even be beaten at all due to bugs in the game. We can actually get a rare glimpse into Kimberly's game development methods in this vlog he made.
Programming a game! I'm programming a game! Let's make it more difficult! Let's make it more difficult!
If we start to dig a little deeper, we begin to find the story of a troubled soul. Kim was born in 1986 and his autobiography was written in around 2013. My name is Kim. I am a 27-year-old human. ? Male. I have suffered from schizotypal disorder and OCD for many years. I suck at most relationships badly. This website is here to document my creativity as a troubled artist. I am not insane. ? I have been under a state of constant depersonalization and fatigue since I was a young teenager. This caused me to believe I was a zombie for many years, as it sure felt this way. To this day, I still have not been able to break out of this abnormal state of mind. Thanks to a huge retrospective and archived chat logs provided to us by legendary game maker Clism, creator of game maker classic Sakeless, we're able to take a huge dive into Kimberly's mind. Without these conversations, this man would likely remain a complete mystery to us. When I create a game, I just create. I sometimes write things down like the name of the person, and then I open a drawing program and I just draw randomly without much thinking. I disable my mind and just let my fantasies take over. My mind works randomly and I don't see random things as random. I guess that's what I was trying to explain. Clism mentions that the Lawnmower Massacre was the first game he found of Kimberly's, noting that he already seemed to be quite infamous within the game maker community. In the game maker forums of the past, the thread announcing the release of the Lawnmower Massacre received a lot of negative comments due to its perceived low quality, and the thread was eventually locked, with the moderators stating that the creator should be ignored. Well, the joke's on you, moderators, because I'm still talking about this 19 years later. In the game itself, there's a picture of a lawnmower and a story, which you can pause to read if you want to. The player basically just flails around running things over until the lawnmower runs out of gas. There were 2 sequels to this game, Lawnmower Massacre Episode 2 and Lawnmower Massacre 3, The Gore is Back. Apparently the second one has network multiplayer capabilities. The game starts off by ear raping you, and it has a very eerie vibe to it. This game is seriously creepy. I aimlessly moved around and I found myself at a power plant which threatened to fry me. It honestly feels like there's much more to this game, but at the same time it's completely confusing, and there may well actually be no more depth. Lawnmower Massacre 3, on the other hand, is almost the same as the first one. Unlike Johnny 1, these games all have an original soundtrack. Music actually became one of Cubas's creative outlets over time, and his music has to be some of the strangest and most esoteric music I've ever heard in my life. Let's listen to some now. Cubas began making music in 2001, however he didn't consider anything worth releasing until 2008. He claims to have used over 100 instruments throughout his discography. He was known for making games and other things at a furious pace when the mood struck him. On the King of Good Stuff Examined blogspot page, it talks briefly about the music, saying that Cubas released 19 full-length albums in 2010 alone. A lot of the music is completely unpalatable to contemporary ears, but that said, a lot of this could actually appeal to those of us who like experimental music. If you're willing to give it a listen, there's some stuff in here which is actually pretty good. There are in total 28 full albums to explore, available on the Kimberly Kubus Archive YouTube channel. The music in my games, when most people hear it, they hear random patterns. The music I hear is a world where each note and each instrument is a different description that has words living inside. Cooking Breakfast 2 was released around the same time as the Lawnmower Massacre. There is no Cooking Breakfast 1, or at least, if there is, it's been lost forever. Cooking Breakfast 2 can hardly even be considered a game. It just features flashing lights, a badly drawn face rotating, and crackling, ear-piercing music playing. Nothing I did prompted any response from the game. I think this is literally it. Whether things are intentional or not depends on how old the game is. For the first Johnny, most of the things were unintentional because I sucked at Game Maker language. In Johnny 5, things that are intentional are the no saving, difficulty, the no menu, and no health bars, constant stream of shots. Those things are supposed to be like that. As we head further down this rabbit hole, we find there's a lot more than meets the eye. These games are far from random. When asked about it, Kim was able to offer up meaning and explanations for things in his games, whether it came from real-life encounters, dreams, or otherwise. At some point we're probably going to ask ourselves if Kimberly was on drugs, and I don't know. He claims that psychoactive drugs are a hobby of his, but he also says he smokes a lot of nuclear chemical waste through his bong. It's sometimes hard to tell what is a joke and what isn't. What we can say for certain is that these weren't just bad games for the sake of being bad. These aren't even really bad games, they're just misunderstood, inaccessible to the average player. A quick run through all the Johnny games show Kim's progression as a game developer. We start to see things like actually being able to save a game, particle effects, improvements to physics and controls, things like that. Johnny 7 is the first game where the physics don't feel completely broken. It's also completely horrible RNG trash and I couldn't get past the first screen. Johnny's appearance changes in every game and his distinctive long nose eventually becomes a mechanic, allowing you to hook onto platforms and jump. A couple of the games even give Johnny an extendable nose. Johnny 15 gives you some snack recommendations that you're required to eat whilst playing, otherwise it won't work. The most notable change as we get further down into the Johnnies is the graphics. The graphics of these games seem to get more and more disturbing as we go on. The first few games are quite innocent, looking like they were just thrown together quickly in MS Paint, but the later games are positively garish, reaching a level of surrealism that actually becomes an aesthetic again. These games have some serious vibes. Hold on, what's this in Johnny 20? Press C in the menu of Project BGV for a secret. Okay, so if we load up the game and press C on the title screen, we get, yeah, moving on. There's really no doubt that these games do get better over time. I can't imagine anyone playing Johnny 1 and thinking, yes, this is good, and I will play it to the end. However, Johnny 21 I would almost consider enjoyable. Is that Kim's face in the bullets? Johnny 28 is the Johnny game that Kim considers to be the best. Seems to have a hand-drawn pencil and paper art style for the enemies, but I can't really say it's too much different from the other games. It's worth taking a moment to explore some of the other artistic pursuits of Kim. He had an interest in splatter movies and amassed quite a collection of them, and so naturally he wrote down his ideas and scripts for movies inspired by these. Eventually he joined a film class to make some contacts, but soon dropped out due to a general dislike of school. The contacts he made there became part of his home movies, which went under the name Cubas Home Video. To me, these movies seem very innocent. It's like some friends just got hold of a video camera and made up some stuff as they went along.
I have arrived at this stranded island all by myself.
There's some funny scenes throughout, and there's also some really gross looking scenes. I'm not sure what the hell this is meant to be. We also have a small selection of artwork to browse, both digital and painted. I like how these paintings are literally blurry, like whoever took the photo was moving. This clown picture is possibly based on a nightmare Kim recalls. When I was young, I remember how cool my grandmother's house was, and there was a staircase leading down to the basement, and all of a sudden I would fall down, and the staircase faded away, so I could not climb up, and I would be stuck there forever, with a bunch of clowns and red balls appearing, with stomach-churning music, and lots of weirdness. A few bits and pieces seem to have been lost forever, like these card games are no longer accessible, and apparently the likes of KimberlyKubis.com.
KimberlyKubus.com.
are too horrifying for the Wayback Machine to have actually archived it, so any chance of recovery now seems unlikely. Heading back to the main library of games, we have the Armageddon Blazers. According to the instructions, I'm supposed to go to the wonderful face, but I couldn't see it anywhere. So we just get to go through this psychedelic sort of maze and avoid these car things. If we die, we get treated to this creepy, grainy video of Kim himself just stroking things and slapping his thigh. Look at this keyboard. This missing key seems to have been entirely replaced with dirt. Even innocent sounding games such as Airport Manager are actually bizarre fever dream games. Look at all these grotesque drawings in a game called Airport Manager. Not to mention all the sounds and music. It's like an unintentional horror game. Clism's archived chat logs feature some discussion about dreams, which seem to be a big inspiration for Kim. Talking about his worst dreams, he mentions a dream called Black Screen. Black Screen was basically a normal nightmare, but then all of a sudden this extremely scary face would appear, and I would get so scared that there are no human words for it. It was the face of the end of everything else. There is a small series of games called Blank Screen, presumably inspired by these. Kimberly also mentions how he has dreams when he is awake. Living dreams. During one of these living dreams, he mentions that ghosts came out of his computer screen and possessed him, turning he himself into a ghost. Kim later states that he has begun to suspect life may just be a dream, and that he feels more alive in his dreams than in real life. In one of the last conversations Kim and Clism had, Kimberly unexpectedly opens up about a lot of his life struggles and a lot of his beliefs. I feel that I'm not in control over myself, and that I'm controlled by mystic forces that control my mind and body. I do hold back a lot of myself, but that's more because I want to, not because I'm afraid to be open. I know what happens after death. I know that there are different planes of existence, as I've been to those planes using third eye techniques. I am an old avatar from the spirit planes. I came to Earth by taking over a body in the womb. My art is based on the world called Cubas that I created many thousand years ago. There is a heaven, and many people live there, but heaven is not the only place. Each person has their own place in the spirit world, and some places have more than one person living there. Heaven and hell are examples of such places. Same thing with Avalon. The world's tree is the entity which connects the planes together. Your spirit will live on after death. If you are a Christian, you will go to heaven in the spirit world. People can also return to Earth. That explains ghosts. They don't have a body, but they can manifest into the same plane as those alive and manipulate it. It might be quite shocking when you first die and find yourself lost in limbo. Being dead for real will make you feel more alive in a way you never did whilst you were alive. I have seen God with my own eyes. Once, when I was flying in an aeroplane, his face manifested in the clouds. The clues about Kim's poor mental health were really all there. This short clip from Armageddon Blazers shows the state of his room. Various vlogs he made and his movies show that he has severe tooth decay, losing many teeth over time. What we see in Kim's film is Kim having fun, making jokes, smiling, and enjoying himself. To know what he was truly feeling inside is really quite heartbreaking. Everything Cubas made was like his games, seemingly nonsensical, weird, and often impossible to decipher without Cubas himself telling us what things were rooted in. In 2014, Kim Åkerström took his own life. Kim Åkerström produced an unbelievable amount of material in his time on Earth. To hand, we have 174 games, 28 full-length albums, 7 movies, all of which are at least 30 minutes long, and several pieces of artwork. These are just the things that haven't been lost. Some games aren't available to download, such as Abortion Manager. A lot of music's been lost, and likely there's much more that we don't even know about. Things aren't necessarily lost forever. A couple of albums were recovered through YouTube comments of all places. But as time goes on, the likelihood of ever recovering more things diminishes. It's unusual for somebody to create such a vast quantity of work, of such a variety, and it's even more unusual for somebody so unknown to have their work so meticulously archived. Through the chronology of Kim's games, we can see how much he experimented with art. Just compare the innocent-looking Johnny 2 to Johnny 34, which is just some kind of anti-art hellscape. It can be easy to get hung up with art, wanting things to be perfect, and it's easy to be anxious and afraid of what other people may think of things we make. But Kim had no such mindset, and for that I think he deserves more recognition. Every game was an exploration of art, trying out new programs, making new music, trying out new instruments. He would be always interested in trying something unfamiliar, even if the results weren't really considered very good. He embraced what this sort of independent media should be about, expressing yourself. Kim Åkerström's creations may be difficult to swallow for a lot of us, but we can be sure that these are genuine pieces of personal expression from somebody who is plagued with personal problems. We may not understand a lot of his creations, and now the only person who could has gone. Rest in peace, Kim Åkerström.